So today I'm going to take you through feeding all of my colonies. So you get to have a look at what colonies I have, how I go about feeding them and looking after them. So there might be some good tips for you there, but if not, at least you get to see all the colonies. Let's get started. Okay, so these are the colonies that I have. So starting here on the left, Camponotus consobrinus, Camponotus anephiolus, Rotidopinera metallica. Then we get into some of the bull ants that I've got, a Nigroceps one in here, Nigrocincta in the big tank. Yep, she's in there. And then the Chelomermex albertsi colony, which you've seen Queen Caesar fairly recently. And then we have another Myrmecia pellicula queen in there. Okay, so we're going to start with my Camponotus consobrinus colony, or the banded sugar ant. So I'm doing an updated video on these guys to give you a bit more info on them and some exciting developments. But to begin with, you can see here I've got the actual two nests. They're going to have to expand and give them a new nest, but we'll get into that later. So here you can see the hydration parts. So part of the feeding time is making sure that we hydrate the nests, give them that moisture and the humidity that they need. So again, using that fresh water, I just draw that water up in a syringe, and then I'm going to add that into each of the sponges, just like so, just to fill them up. Okay, so after filling up the hydration ports, now we're just going to have a look in the Outworld and see what we need to do there. So you need to clean up the dead pieces of food or scraps that are left over in there. Always good to keep it clean so we don't get mold introduced. Now in here I've got two of the Biformica liquid feeders. I love these things. I'll put a little link in the cards above for you if you want to have a look at them, and also where you can get them down in the description below. So I've got two here. This is the one that I have the water in. This is the large size. So you can see there, they've used up a fair bit of water, about 2/3 of it. So just screw off the base of these and you can just fill this up with water. Again, making sure you use that nice pure water that you have. So a couple of ways you can do this. You can do it with a syringe, or you can actually just fill it with the bottle as well directly, just because they're a little bit larger. But here we go, just using that syringe, drawing up the nice clean water and filling it as well. So that's the one way. The other way is just, because it is the large one, you can just fill it straight from the bottle, like so. There we go, screw the lid back on, and that is now full and ready to go, so you can place that back in. These last quite a bit of time, so it is actually good. You don't have to worry about doing this every single day. The other one that I have here, this smaller one, this is one of the micros, and this I have the sugar water in. So again, the solution that I use here is 50% sugar and 50% water. So I've already made up a solution in a little bottle like this, which you can get from any sort of hobby store, very cheap. And then I just use that to put a few extra drops in there and fill it up. So again, it was probably about half empty. I drank about half of it. So I screw that up nice and tight, and it's ready to drop back into the Outworld. So that's pretty simple, isn't it? Another thing I like to do in my Outworlds is just put in a bit of alfoil. So I just get a small piece like this, fold the edges so it's nice and flat, and looks a little bit cleaner, like so, just moving over those edges. And then what I do is I put that into the Outworld, like so, and then I actually put on a few extra drops of that sugar water onto that as well. So it's just another option, another easy option for the ants to get to have a good drink as well, just in case they're having a little bit of trouble with those liquid feeders. But they generally don't mind those. But yeah, just a little bit of an extra area that they can drink from as well. Okay, time to move on to the next colony. Okay, so we'll be feeding these guys crickets later on, but we'll get to that. Now in this next colony of camponotus, again you'll see the liquid feeders and also the alfoil there that I've put in. So we need to do a little bit of cleaning up in this one as well, and a bit of feeding. So in this little outworld that we have set up for them. So let's have a look and see what we need to do. Okay, so as soon as I take the lid off on these guys, they run around like crazy. But that's okay, I've got the fluon around the top edge there so they can't get out. So that's fine. So you can see here we've got some old food scraps that need to be cleaned up in this one as well. Now again, you need to fill up those Biformica liquid feeders. Now I won't show you that, I've already showed you how I do that. But you can see that, yep, they definitely need to be topped up. So I'll do each of those as well. Here we go, you can see topped up the sugar water there. They do love drinking out of that one. The water one also needs to be done. So I'll make sure that I get rid of that and fill that one up to put it back in. Also remove some scraps there, but we'll get into that in a second. Okay, so if we look at their nest here, Queen Abigail, her colony, again she needs an upgrade by the looks of it, so I might have to do another video on that one. But you can see there that they actually need their hydration filled up. So first of all, that water's been replaced in there, so that's good to go now as well. In that outworld, they probably need a bigger outworld as well. It's not necessary, but... So old alfoil here as well. So this is something that I do. I just have an old container here like this and a pair of tweezers. And what I do is I can just easily remove any alfoil leftover bits and pieces that's in the nest like so. And then when I've finished doing the full cleanup, then I can throw all of that in the garbage bin. Just makes it a little bit cleaner for myself. It's one thing I find useful anyway. So a new bit of alfoil goes in, and then I put a bit of sugar water on that as well. So they can easily access it, which is good for them. There we go, already found it. Having a little sniff around that one. Okay, so next up here we'll use this syringe full of that water again, just to hydrate these sponges. So fill it up, and you'll notice there that it's running out in that capillary action through the acrylic pieces out into the nest. So the ants here can drink from that, but it's for that moisture, humidity inside the nest, which is very important for keeping the brood nice and moist. So you need to make sure that we do both of those, like so. Now most nests like this are very similar. These are the Oz Ants ones, acrylic nests, which are a beautiful product. But yeah, many different styles of nests have the same sort of setup with the sponges there to keep them moist. Even the whitehorn ones, very similar as well. So you can see this colony is quite healthy. This is the first colony I ever had. If you want to check out their progress, yeah, just see my other videos there, and you'll be able to see the progress of this colony. And look, there we go, one drink in it. All right, next nest. Okay, this is night dust and the green ants. These guys, you've seen a video on them fairly recently, so the Rhytidopanera metallica, and these guys are crazy. They just spend so much time in that outworld moving everything around. Look at all of the sand that they have decided to move. And this colony is getting massive, so they definitely need an upgrade. You can see down there the two Biformica feeders, the sugar water and also the water tower there. Look at them, they've just plastered it full of sand as well. So we're going to need a definite clean out of this water tower. Crazy little things. Okay, so I've just cleaned off the water tower and filled that up so it's ready to go back in. Also what I'll do is I'll just clean up a little bit of the outworld, add a bit more sand back in there as well for them, so it's a little bit nicer. These guys are going to need to have a little bit of an upgrade, I think. Quite often in the outworld there's this amount of ants, so yeah. So a little bit of sand just back in there just to make it look a little bit nicer, and I'll put back in that water tower there, being careful not to squash any. So that's that colony, very similar setup, and putting in the hydration for everything there as well for them. So very similar to the other two colonies. So now we're going to move on to something a little bit different. This is my bull ant, or the Myrmecia nigriceps. So I've got a little dish in here for water and a little bit of alfoil for the honey. So these guys are a little bit different. It's in the test tube set up there. So I've got the little cover over the test tube. So first of all, I just use that clean water and fill up the dish for her like so. So she's got a little bit of access to water. You'll notice her hair in the test tube as well. So she obviously has that little reservoir of water, but it is getting a little bit low. There she is. She's nice and big, isn't she? I've done one video on her as well. I'm probably ready to do an update on her as well. She's got a few eggs going, which is really good. So I've got the other alfoil set up here. So that's going to be for the honey. So again, I just use pure honey, and I'm just going to top that up as well. So she's got something to feed on. Very basic setup for these bull ants to begin with. Just keep the honey up to them and try not to disturb them too much at all. Okay, now it's time to have a look at Queen Sisa and her colony. So this is their Calomyrmex alberti, which I did a video on fairly recently as well, so you can check that out. I've got the one by Formica feeder in here just for their water. This colony is quite small, so they don't need a lot. So we just top that one up again with some water, like so. Screw that lid back on and place that one in the Outworld. And then I have a small bit of baking paper in this one that I will actually just top up with a little bit of that sugar water solution again. So just like so. Little drops in there that they can feed on. And then again the hydration. So using that syringe again just to moisten up that sponge there in the acrylic nest. Nice and easy to do. So a colony this size doesn't actually take long, just to top them up and make sure they're okay. You don't have to hydrate that sponge every day. Okay, so it's time to feed some crickets. So I've got a couple here. I've got the medium and the small. Now a few of the tools I use, I've got the tweezers for cleaning, syringe for the hydration. I just have a knife here to chop up the crickets. My solution, sugar water solution, some fresh honey, and then the bottle of water as well. So they're the tools that I need for feeding my colonies. So to begin with here, crickets. I'm going to get the medium crickets like so. You can get these. I get mine from Pet Barn. Packet of these crickets like so. So just pulling one out like this. I do crush them a bit. For some of you guys that may not be the best. Some guys get a bit squeamish about that. Quite often I will just pull them out and I'll actually chop them in two and kill them instantly and then put them in the nest as well. This one I've crushed a bit. Probably should have finished her off. Sorry guys if you don't like that. But I guess in nature it would just be a normal cricket running around and the ants would just tackle it anyway. So you can see them here, they find that fairly quickly and they're going to get into it. So again with this one I've just dropped in another cricket. So I give them probably a cricket like this, 1 or 2 crickets every couple of days just for their protein as well. You can use other things for protein. I've used ham or turkey. But the problem I find with that is it smells after a while, stinks the nest out. So crickets or mealworms I find the best to feed to them. And here you can see them swarming. They are very excited to have a cricket. Okay, so there we go. So there's my colonies. I haven't showed you all of them, feeding all of them, but the techniques are very similar for feeding all the rest of the bull ants or the other small colonies. So we've fed the crickets, got the camponotus colonies, nice and happy with those. We've fed them, we've topped up their water, topped up their carbohydrates, either their honey or their sugar water, their protein. So the colonies are good to go now like this. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Just gives you a little bit of a brief of my colonies as well, a little bit of an overview of each of them and how I go about cleaning and feeding them all. So thanks very much for watching this far, guys. If you have, really appreciate the support. You guys have been fantastic. It's been really enjoyable updating and putting all these videos online, and I really love all the comments. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, I encourage you to do so. Just keeps me motivated, and hit that like button and share it with your friends as well. I'd really appreciate that. Thanks very much, and I'll start working on my next video. Thanks, guys. And remember, Happy ant keeping.